I did not set out to in any way change the chronicle of what happened to us.
That is Brian Williams in an interview with Stars and Stripes. They've got some audio, and we've got it there for you. We'll play a couple more here throughout the next segment. Aaron Katersky joins us, ABC News correspondent. Good morning, Aaron Katersky.
Well, good morning, McGraw. Brian Williams made those remarks in an interview with Stars and Stripes before the story broke, but it does represent his only public comments about the controversy, aside from what he did on NBC Nightly News in apologizing for misremembering the story of 2003's Iraq War when he said he was on a helicopter that was shot down, in fact, by RPG fire when in fact he was not. And now NBC is conducting an internal fact-checking review led by its chief investigative reporter.
I've been following this story closely. I think a lot of people in the news media are, just because I think Brian Williams has a reputation of being a good guy, and me personally, it's breaking my heart to see somebody like this fall from grace. But the whole story, Aaron Katersky, is so convoluted because you have him changing his story throughout the last 10 years.
And that's what he himself says to Stars and Stripes, that he accurately reported the story on NBC Nightly News when it first happened, again in a blog post several years later. But then in more recent years, the story has morphed. And you saw the clip from David Letterman and again on NBC Nightly News when he himself was on the helicopter, which we know not to be true, according to others who were with him at the time. And when Stars and Stripes broke the story, he had to go on the air and apologize for it. And he says he doesn't understand what screwed up in his mind to make him conflate the two aircraft.
Now, in this article, the Stars and Stripes, and we have the audio here. We'll play it for you. The question is how is it? I think it's Brian Williams 3. I think the question is that they asked Brian Williams, how is it that you can actually confuse being hit in an airplane?
I did not. Again, it's very basic. It's very.
We have that?
I did not.
Yeah.
Again, it's very basic. I would not have chosen to make this mistake. I don't know what screw-up in my mind caused me to conflate one aircraft from the other. The fact is, I remember 3 aircraft going down. I was on one of them, and an additional aircraft aside from ours took an RPG through the rear housing above the ramp.
Aaron Katersky, no one has backed up his story saying that his plane was shot in any way, shape, or form.
That's right. It's only been Brian Williams and his account that has stood until now, and members of the military who were there at the time took issue, went to Stars and Stripes. Apparently some had even raised questions on social media and to other news reporters before. This is called into question Williams' reporting from New Orleans, from Israel, and other events that are on his biography, and now NBC's going back and apparently looking at all of it.
Yeah, and then you find yourself in a weird position. You, ABC News, reporting on an NBC News anchor. The whole thing is confusing.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
And anybody who does this, I think, lives in fear that you're just one story away from the same kind of thing.
Well,
but be very careful.
But again, and we've made this point. When Dan Rather believes a source that sends him down the wrong path, that's one issue. But this happening to Brian Williams, misremembering being shot in a helicopter. You would think you would remember that over anything.
And he appears to have remembered it, at least initially, as it happened, and then the story changed. And you don't know whether this is just self-aggrandizement or whether he actually did conflate aircraft as time passed, or whether he was just outright lying about it for whatever reason. And that's something that NBC brass now is trying to get to the bottom of, as he has taken himself off the air from the NBC Nightly News.
What's the thought process, and what are people saying out there? Does he survive this? Can he survive this?
Can he? Sure. Will he? Who knows? And as you've said, journalists have been fired for different kinds of mistakes, and whether this is one that warrants firing or not, I guess it will be up to the NBC News president, Deborah Turnus, who will act presumably after the the investigation is complete. But it's an internal investigation. We don't know whether there's any outside consulting going on. They have to be watching the numbers. Brian Williams' ratings were well below what they normally are the day after he made his apology on the air. Then he took himself off the air, and we're not sure when he may be planning to return.
What do you think of I'm getting criticism from listeners saying, boy, you're holding Brian Williams to a standard you don't hold politicians to.
Jon Stewart made the same kind of criticism on his show, talking about journalists holding Brian Williams to account when they didn't hold the Bush administration to account. And Stewart joked, at least somebody's being held to account for telling a lie about the war in Iraq. Fine, but remember that the woman who wrote the New York Times piece that everybody sort of followed into war was she lost her job.
Right. Judith Miller.
It's not it's not necessarily one for one, and clearly you don't have to look very hard to find areas where journalists could do a better job. But in this particular case, it seems one outright lied, and that's where many have drawn a distinction.
Yeah. Aaron Katursky, how's the family up in Boston? Everyone surviving?
Everyone's all right. A lot of snow.
Did you feel that God's still crying over that Patriots victory?
I think it's his confetti.
Okay, fair enough.
Joy and celebration.
That's why he's at the networks, and that's why I'm in St. Louis. Aaron, be safe out there. Thanks for checking in. 7:58, Big 550.